Well, hello, Power Partners, and welcome to the informational playground. This is Star Style, Be the Star You Are. We're coming to the airwaves under the auspices of Be the Star You Are charity. I am your host, Cynthia Brian, and we are on the Voice America Empowerment channel. Today's show, we have a lot of fun things we're going to do, and we're talking about travel as well as many other things. So we're hoping that you will stay with us and enjoy the show. The miracle moment for today is brought to you by Be the Star You Are charity. You can visit that charity at bethestaryouare.org. This is from a source unknown. Maybe you know who wrote it, but I just love it. If you're not fired with enthusiasm, you will be fired with enthusiasm. And in this day and age, when we are trying to keep our jobs and everybody seems to be getting fired, we really do have to have a lot more enthusiasm, I think. Well, I want to just get jumping into our first segment, which is going to be all about some traveling tips from other countries, because we're finding that it's getting a little tougher to travel, even though if you go to the airports, they are packed. But you've probably also read or seen on the news how there are so many flight delays. There have been fires, like at Heathrow Airport, shut down the airport for, I think, 20 something hours. There seems to be always something happening, but also politics plays a role in things too. And you think you have all your ducks in order, and then you go on a trip and you are denied entry. So we have to remember that traveling abroad is a privilege. And while a lot of people just take it for granted that you can show up, at any border and be allowed to enter, that isn't the case. And as you've seen, it's certainly not the case here in the United States. It's like, don't come, you're not welcome. So we do have to remember that no country is obligated to let any non-citizen enter. So before you travel, double check, double check all your documents. Make sure they are in order and that you are aware of any special requirements for visiting a country before you head to the airport. And there are some really helpful tips out there. If you aren't sure of requirements, you don't want to guess. Go to the consulate's website of the country you're going to visit, verify what their travel requirements are, and if you're still not sure, you can call the consulate or email them for verification. I've done that many times. And the United States Department of State website contains really helpful information about travel requirements. And in fact, you can fill out a form before you travel, and it's called a step. It's really easy. And what I really like about it is it will notify you if there's any issues in the country that you're going to, as well as it will send you an update. And that update is really important. It's called a step subscription, and it's through the Consular Affairs. And you can just go to login.gov and sign up for the Smart Traveler Enrollment Program, STEP subscription to wherever it is that you're going to go. And then your information is only accessible to authorized personnel of the U.S. Department of State. Although, again, with Doge and all these crazy things that are happening in the U.S., I don't know how everything is private anymore, but I think it is a good thing to log into STEP, because in the event of emergency, the U.S. Department of State can provide assistance to U.S. citizens and nationals who are traveling abroad, and they give you the website, not only the websites, but the locations, the phone numbers, the contact people of the embassies that will be closest to the area where you are. But there are several reasons you can be denied entry to another country. And I thought these were really important to know. I travel as much as possible. I travel a lot for work, and I enjoy traveling for pleasure as well. In fact, right now I'm just returning from a very long journey of about 25 hours. I'm jet lagged, but I'm happy to be back with you on the air as always on Wednesdays. But the first one is not having a visa. Some countries like India or Vietnam require Americans to obtain a visa before visiting. I visited both of these countries, India and Vietnam, and it takes a while to get that visa and the prices change, so you want to make sure to double check. Now, airlines are supposed to check to make sure that passengers traveling to these countries have a valid visa before they board the plane, but sometimes mistakes happen. And if you arrive at your destination without a valid visa, you're not going to be allowed to enter and you will be sent home at your own expense. Some countries will allow U.S. citizens to obtain visas when they arrive at the airport, but not that many. So you really do need to check in advance. And one thing I just found out recently with my recent travel, where I had to do a transfer through England, is that they have Great Britain has a new rule that even if you're transferring, you have to get, it's not quite a visa, but it's called an ETA. It's only $12, but it can take up to 6 days to get it. When I applied, it did come within a few hours, but if you were at the airport and you didn't have it, you may not be able to enter the country, or you can't even transfer to another country. I was just transferring, not even staying in England, but I had to have it just to go through. Another reason, and this is a big one, is not having 6 months of valid uh, time on your passport. It's really a misconception that it's safe to travel if your passport hasn't expired before you return home. In fact, almost all countries are saying that in order to enter, you have to have 6 months left on your passport. And I imagine it's because they're concerned that you may just come to the country and then decide not to leave. So, of course, that's not legal, but people do it. So you have to have 6 months. So, while that sounds logical, it's not the case. Many countries require that visitors have valid passports for 3 months from the day of their trip, but it is usually 6 months. And again, you can be turned away at the border if your passport expires earlier. Um, the United States allows citizens to renew or apply for new passports anytime, including before their current passport expires. However, having just done this, the passport offices, like so many of our institutions now, are very backed up, and they're saying it can take 3 to 4 months to renew your passport. So if you have a trip coming up, within, I would say, I don't know, you'll have to figure it out for yourself. If you have a trip coming up within 9 months, I think I would start renewing. I did that, and the only issue with that is instead of them documenting it from the date of the date that your current passport expires, it actually issues the passport on the day that they give it to you. So you do lose, you could lose a couple of months of your passport, but most passports are good for about 10 years. So I guess a couple of months doesn't matter. And it's just better to have your passport there. The next one is a new one, and that is having X as a gender marker on your passport. Some United States passport holders have an X for their gender marker, and the United States will not issue new passports with an X for the foreseeable future based on our current administration. The current passports, if you have it, are valid until they expire. However, that doesn't guarantee that other countries will recognize the X marker as a valid entry, and they may not allow those passport holders in. So it could be especially problematic in countries where homosexuality is well, still illegal. Those countries, some of them would include like United Arab Emirates, Yemen, Iran. I don't think you want to go to Iran anyway, but you might want to go to United Arab Emirates. If you have an X on your passport, research the relevant laws before you travel so you aren't turned away at the border. And if you are applying for a new passport, you will now, according to the laws of the United States, have to register as male or female as assigned at birth. Another one is a damaged passport. Passports are absolutely essential travel documents and they can get damaged easily. So keep your passport in good shape because if it's damaged, you may not be able to enter another country. Of course, minor wear and tear that comes along with normal use is usually fine, but if it has a bent cover, if there's water damage, if there's ink stains, or there's gaps in lamination, or there's novelty stamps like people get at the national parks, that could cause immigration to deny you entry. You can't damage the passport's information page, and that contains your picture, your background information, and that would be especially problematic. Of course, we could always get lucky, but you don't want to ruin your trip. Accidents happen, but just protect your passport. And if you are traveling with someone who is prone to losing passports, then then it's important to maybe have one person be in touch. Okay. Oh, what could you do to keep them? Just put them in a simple Ziploc bag. That'll protect your passport from water damage and smudges. And, that's a kind of an easy fix. Not having an onward ticket. Many countries will welcome you, but they want to make sure that you don't plan on overstaying your visit. Countries like Peru, Brazil, New Zealand, and there's a lot of other countries, they require proof that you are going to be moving on, and then they'll allow you to enter. If you have a round trip airline ticket, that's usually all the proof that they may need. But sometimes this requirement poses a problem for travelers who don't have any firm travel plans. So you might be able to show an inexpensive bus or train ticket to another country. That's sufficient. Um, an onward air ticket, even if it's refundable, is usually accepted. And you have to be prepared to answer questions about when you plan on leaving, what you're going to be doing in the country, and have your travel documents ready to share. Now, if you've ever had a DUI conviction, some countries take driving under the influence convictions very, very seriously, and they will refuse to allow you to enter the country if you've been convicted. And these countries might surprise you, but it's Canada, Japan, New Zealand. Those are just three of them, but there are many others. So again, that's why you really want to go to the websites of the country you want to visit. And some countries might allow you in advance to apply for an exemption. It's a very complex process. It can take time, so do it in advance. Now, this is one that when I found out about it, really surprised me. But boy, it's one you really want to think about because it's a popular fashion trend now, and that's wearing camo. If you wear camouflage to some countries, civilians are prohibited from wearing any type of camo in several countries in any color combination. And in those countries, only members of the military are allowed to wear camouflage. So countries will probably refuse any civilian wearing camo. And those countries some of them are close, like the Caribbean. Africa is another one, Zimbabwe, Jamaica, Barbados. If you show up in any of these countries wearing your favorite camo shirt, it could even be, in bright pink, it doesn't matter. The good news is that you probably be allowed to enter if you agreed to change your clothes before passing through immigration. And if you inadvertently pack camouflage clothing, you probably won't be kept out of the country, but your clothing will be confiscated. So, you know, if you get it in your suitcase, let it stay in your suitcase. But probably if you're traveling, forget the camo, just say, err on the safe side. Now, if you're traveling with children, you have to have correct documentation. Many countries around the world go above and beyond to protect minors traveling internationally. And this is to prevent, kidnapping, child trafficking, and violations of any custody orders. So there's all has to be proof that a parent has permission to travel with a minor. And it really comes up when there's only one parent traveling with a child. You might need a notarized letter from the child's other parent stating that they have permission to travel. It also comes up when, if you are traveling with a child that is not your own, and that would also require a notarized letter signed by both parents. Um, it's even if a country doesn't require one, it's really good to have it on hand. And that's if you're an aunt, an uncle, a friend, a grandparent, all of that could be important. Now, if you're convicted of a crime, a lot of countries don't hold past criminal convictions against travelers. Misdemeanors, other than the DUIs, aren't usually, and that's an important word, usually a problem. However, some countries refuse to allow anyone who's been convicted of a felony or any other serious crime to enter. Now, convictions for drug trafficking, violent crimes, multiple convictions, or any recent convictions are incredibly problematic. Japan, South America, South Africa, United Kingdom, Brazil, they all refuse entry to anyone with a criminal conviction. And there are countries that just have a blanket ban, and some make an assessment on a case by case. But if you have been convicted of a crime, look into any restrictions before you travel so you're not turned away at the border. Systems like Interpol that allow countries to share information, you ensures that you are going to get caught if you try to cover up your criminal history. So don't do that. Getting back to a passport, I failed to say that if you fill your passport with all those stamps, you might not be able to get into a country because you might have too many stamps and it might pose a problem. Some countries like Malta, Greece, Denmark require that visitors have at least one completely blank page in their passport when they arrive. And some countries like Germany, Italy, and Portugal require two or three. And so if you're a frequent traveler, check your passport before you reach the border because maybe you're going to need some more pages. And then there are some countries that if you've been to a country that they're not friends with, they won't let you into their country if you have the stamp. So, be aware of that. You also have to have enough money to go to a country, but not too much money. You have to be prepared to prove you have enough money to support yourself while you're there, and the amount varies by location and the reason for your visit. Places like Brazil, India, Spain, Egypt, and a lot of other countries will ask you to show proof of funds before allowing you to enter. And bank statements, pay stubs, credit card statements showing your credit limit are usually sufficient. So you might want to take some of those documents, and none of us think of bringing those. And the final thing that could get you put in jail or actually kicked out of the country before you even enter is if you try to bring in a prohibitive item into the country, you could be denied entry. Some countries prohibit visitors from bringing in meat, fruit, vegetables. Some ban medications that are legal in the US, like medical marijuana or a stimulant drug used to treat ADHD. And the countries enforce the ban. They refuse to allow you to enter even when you have a valid prescription from your home country. Obviously, weapons, guns, swords, it can keep you out of the country. And even some less obvious items may be problematic Tanzania, Botswana, Kenya, they prohibit visitors from bringing in plastic bags. France does not allow visitors to bring in counterfeit purses, even for personal use. So if you're thinking of bringing in that fake Chanel, forget about it. If they see it, they'll be confiscated. So, depending on what the item in question in the country's laws, customs and immigration officials may allow you to enter, but they will confiscate your prohibited items. And as we've seen with like Russia, not that anybody wants to go to Russia now, you could go into a country and be taken to jail, face fines, criminally charged, and maybe, like our female basketball player, she's going to be given what, 15 years of hard labor for just a little bit of CBD oil. Thankfully, she was released, but it's just not worth taking the risk. So I hope this helps you have a great travel experience. You're listening to Cynthia Brian. This is Star Style, Be the Star You Are. When we come back from the break, I'm going to give you a couple of simple salves for household issues. Don't go away. Well, we're back. You're listening to Cynthia Brian. This is Star Style, Be the Star You Are. And we're going to go from the global traveling back to the house. And I want to give you some household hacks, I guess, because our home doesn't stop at our front door or back door. Gardening, barbecuing, even something as simple as taking out the trash means we have to go outside, and that area of your home needs as much attention as the interior, and sometimes more. And if you have a place that's exposed to winter snow or summer heat or everything in between, well, you need to know some of this stuff. So, outside the house, have you devoted a lot of thought or attention to the outside of your home? And if you haven't, it's springtime. This is a great time to start. You want to make the great outdoors safer in cold weather and more pleasant when it's warmer. And these are a couple of ideas that you can do. Now, of course, if you live in a snow area, and I don't, but if you do, if the sidewalk or patio needs de-icing near your garden, the one thing is do not use rock salt. The salt will leach into the soil, it'll poison it. And I don't want you to poison your garden. Instead, use natural clay kitty litter. You can use sand, you can use the dry tiny pellets that are natural fertilizer. They're available at garden supply stores, and that will de-ice your sidewalk, your patio, your paths. Again, do not use rock salt. Um, if you distribute a dusting of baking soda, that will also melt the ice and help prevent slipping. And that doesn't eat away at outdoor ground covering or the soles of your shoes. But again, everything gets tracked into the house when you wear shoes, so leave your shoes at the door. And if you have a wooden deck and it gets iced over, now I will say that we do get it where I am, it gets cold enough at night. In the morning, the deck is iced over. Now you can just let it melt, or you could get out some cornmeal, and a sprinkling of cornmeal will provide traction without damaging. If it's wood, won't damage the wood. And again, that won't harm your garden. As the goddess gardener, I'm always interested and worried that you're gonna, that you have to have your garden and your growing plants safe. Now, concrete steps. How do you clean them? They could get really grimy. If you mix a half cup of clean sand into a can of paint and you paint your concrete steps with it, that the sand and the paint will offer some traction when the steps are icy or wet. And if you're going to paint the steps, you might want to paint them white so they're easier to see on dark nights, especially if your outside lights burn out. Or you could even do like a little stripe on it, and that would, be really good. How do you remove moss? Now, I do get, because it gets rain, I get moss on my brick walkways. If you have stone walkways, the moss grows on it too. It's awfully pretty, but it's definitely slippery. And this is kind of a remedy that should get rid of some moss overgrowth. In a spray bottle, you can combine 2 tablespoons of rubbing alcohol and put a pint of water and just spray the moss with the solution, and then you can wash it away with the hose. The other thing that I have tried is I just power wash my patio and my stairs that are brick like once a year or once every 2 years or whenever they need it. And that it takes a while, and it has this really funny, wet, kind of swampy smell, when I'm done. Now, if any of the concrete on your property has grease stains, you can drench it with a liquid dishwashing detergent. Let it stay that way for about an hour, and then just pour some boiling water on it. And if the stain isn't completely gone, it probably won't be the first time. You can repeat the process. Now, something I haven't tried, but I've heard that it works is, and it's kind of scary, is if you have a stain on your driveway, pour Coca-Cola on it. Evidently, there's something in that Coca-Cola that eats away at the concrete. So all I can think about for all of you out there who drink Coca-Cola is if Coca-Cola eats concrete, it probably is doing something to your stomach too. I don't know. I haven't tried it, so I don't want to say it, but I've heard it. Now, what if you have a door lock that sticks? If your key doesn't go in and out of the lock smoothly, some of these things could help. And I've had that issue a couple of times, so I'm going to share it with you. If you spray the key with a non-stick vegetable spray, and before it dries, just put it in the keyhole a few times and like click it. That usually does it. You could also dip, a cotton ball in baby powder and smack it on the keyhole. And the idea is to have a bit of powder coat the inside of the keyhole. I put baby powder like in my cowboy boots when I can't get them on, and it works really great. Now, the other thing is if you rub the serrated side and the underside of a key with a soft lead pencil. Of course, our pencils aren't lead anymore. They're actually graphite. But what happens is the pencil's graphite from the key goes into the keyhole. And what it does is by moving it back and forth, it helps the key come out cleaner. And I thought that's a really good helpful one, right? So now, what else would be a good thing to tell you? Oh, we are getting to wanting to be outside. So to clean your plastic patio furniture, spray the plastic furniture with a foam shaving cream. Let it stay that way for 5 minutes. Use a soft brush or coarse sponge to wipe the dirt away, and then you can hose it down. And then after wiping the dust and dirt off plastic, and this can go for wood or metal furniture frames too, but not your chair seats and not other parts that would come into contact with people's skin. Um, but you could buff the frames with a liquid car wax, and it protects your furniture from pollution, from bird droppings, and just about anything else that causes erosion. And when you your patio umbrellas, that's a good one. While you're at that auto supply, buy a liquid car wax, pick up some cleaner for convertible car tops, and that same cleaner will work just great on your sun-beaten patio umbrella. Aren't these good tips? I think they're really, really good tips. Now, for barbecuing, we want to keep some antibacterial wipes close by to clean your hands after handling any raw meat. And when you're finished barbecuing and the grill is still warm, you could sprinkle baking soda on it, let it stay that way overnight. The next morning, just wipe it clean, rinse it a little bit, dry. It's going to be just fine. And if you have those loose lids on garbage cans, you want to keep them from flying away on a windy day, just get some rope or wire and tie the lid to the garbage with the handle. So I hope that those are a few of the good tips that you can use. And, it's just important to keep the inside and outside of our houses looking good, but these are tips for the outside of your house. So you're listening to Cynthia Brian. This is Star Style. Be the star you are. We're going to have a business bite, and then we're going to come back and I'm going to talk to you about the fruits of our labor, which is going to be part of my gardening tips for today. Don't go away. We'll be back in just a bit. When you hear vague put-offs like, call me another time, I'll get back to you, or let me think about it, make a habit to ask, why do you feel this way? Or is there a reason you need to think it over? The simple technique will help you uncover a real concern the prospect did not feel inclined to share sooner. It'll also help determine if the prospect is merely procrastinating or honestly fearful of making a decision. Avoid spending a lot of time analyzing every possibility in order to find the true reason for a delay. You can gain time in which to keep the conversation going so you can gather your thoughts. So, try a new tactic to help you close the deal by honest listening, because when you get the call me another time, usually it means that they're not that interested. Remember, you are the star of your own performance. Turn your passions into profits. I'm Cynthia Brian with another business bite from Star Style. For more information, visit cynthiabrian.com. That's Cynthia Brian, Brian with an I.com. Well, we're back with our final segment. This is my digging deep, and I am the goddess gardener, Cynthia Brian. And well, I'm going to be talking to you about fruits of our labor in this segment. Martha Stewart wrote this quote. She said, "It's wonderful to have a piece of land on which one can propagate trees, berries, flowers, and vegetables for one's use and the enjoyment of others." And with the terrible tariffs that have been implemented, people are going to be paying much more for fruits and vegetables, specifically those that are organic. If you enjoy eating fresh from the field at a reasonable price, it's time to grow an edible garden. And you might even want to raise a couple of chickens or two. I just had a note from a friend who went to the local supermarket to buy a dozen eggs, and eggs were $14.99 a dozen. I have my chickens. Yes, it does cost money to raise chickens, but at least you have fresh eggs. Well, whether you have a piece of land, a balcony, or just a few pots, you can grow delicious and nutritious vegetables and fruits. You can grow your edibles on your deck or a patio, a balcony, a porch, or you can grow them next to your grill. From tabletop pots to garden containers, plants flow seamlessly together by weaving flowers and edibles to add color, texture, and beneficial insects to any backyard. Now, how do you create a functional working garden, you might be asking, and still make it beautiful? Well, I like to borrow ideas from the French potager, where we create a sustainable garden for all seasons. Now, since medieval times, the French have been combining flowers, herbs, fruits, berries, and vegetables in what they call a kitchen garden or potager. Spring is the time to start. Potagers attract pollinators while providing healthy produce. And you can begin by identifying what you and your family just want to eat throughout the year. Besides eating fresh, do you want to grow enough to dry? Do you want to dehydrate? Do you want to can, freeze for other seasons? Make a list and stick to it. And when we go to the nursery, it is so easy to get excited with all the available options, which may result in buying plants you don't want or won't have time to plant or even the space to plant. I mean, I recently wanted to plant a few tomato plants. I went and I found so many different varieties. I ended up buying 22 different plants. Now, fortunately, I had the time and the space to get them in the ground. This is my experiment to see if I'm doing it too early. I like to do it at different stages and see how they grow. But I've made the mistake many times of going to the nursery and I get so excited about all the colors of the flowers that I buy way too many plants and it takes me a long time to plant them and then, some of them die and that's not good. But since early March, I have been weeding to prepare the soil for the planting that I have been doing. And the key to easy weeding is to weed when the soil is moist from the rain and the roots can be pulled out without too much effort. The sprouted seeds from calendula, which is also called pot marigold, and nigella, which is called love in the mist, had overtaken my potager where I have arugula, Swiss chard, cabbage, kale, and lettuces, and those had supplied greens throughout the winter. And even though I wanted some calendula and nigella to stay, it was necessary in order for me to get in my tomatoes and to plant some of my other things. I had to pull all of these, and I made room for peas and beans and spinach and beets and radishes and other desired vegetables that could be sowed as soon as the ground could be worked. Now, vegetables require fertile soil to thrive. So before you start your seeds, make sure that you improve your soil with organic matter by layering on top of your current soil. The mulch will decompose even further, so you don't have to turn the soil. In fact, the all the different studies now are showing it's really not good to rototill or to turn your soil because you're disturbing all the microorganisms that live in the soil. Now, once your soil is ready, plant short rows of greens every 2 weeks as the weather remains cool. Now, homegrown salad greens can be grown over a long period and harvested with sharp scissors. And then you can thin the leafy greens or harvest any crowded young plants because they're really nutritious in soups or smoothies, salads, or even sides. And homegrown vegetables are loaded with vitamins and nutrients, and especially if you have enriched your soil, because the recent research is showing that the soil that produces our vegetables and fruits that we buy at the supermarket has minimal nutrition now because the soil has been so decimated so of nutrients, so your vegetables are not getting good nutrients. So example, kale and peas are loaded with vitamins A, B, C. Beets are high in vitamin A, B2, B6, and C, and these are super easy to grow. So use natural, sustainable methods, and you can grow your own organic food. It'll taste sweeter. It will have increased health benefits. Now, I do want to tell you about the Dirty Dozen. I've told it before, but I'm going to say it again. These are vegetables and fruits that are extremely high in pesticides and insecticides. So these are the things that you really, if you like them, grow them yourself. They have a high amount of dangerous chemical residue, and it is the highest based on the order in which I'm going to say them. Strawberries are the worst, so I never buy strawberries or eat strawberries unless I grow them or I know that somebody has grown them. Spinach, kale, and collards and mustard greens, all the same thing. Grapes, peaches, pears, nectarines, apples, peppers, cherries, blueberries, and green beans. Those are all considered the Dirty Dozen. And, they're pretty much favorites of everyone. And when grown naturally, they are filled with nutrition and vitamins and things that are good for you. So it's just, you better buy them organically or grow them yourself. A few things that are really easy for anyone to grow, and you can put them in a pot or you can, put it in a plot, would be lettuce, peas, green beans, radishes, carrots, kale, Swiss chard, beets, zucchini, mustard, collards, spinach, fennel, and turnips. So try growing those fruits yourself, vegetables, and I think you will be really happy. And then if you want to add a touch of edible flowers like the French do, some tasty blooms are more well known than others, but let me just give you the name of a few. Calendula, nasturtium, borage, sunflower. I bet that surprises you, but sunflowers are edible. Carnations, violas, the blossoms of chives, cornflower, impatiens, of course, dandelion and ramps. I have been eating ramps now for several months, and ramps are a wild onion with a white flower, and they're really, really good. So, those are just some things that you can do, but I'm good. The final things just to remember for your garden is now that it is April, drain any standing water from containers, saucers, old tires, because mosquitoes are already breeding and they are the deadliest creatures on the planet. Also, get your Tdap vaccine. That is a vaccine that protects against tetanus, diphtheria, and pertussis. If it's been 10 years or more since your last vaccine, get that shot soon. I know, again, we're in an administration that doesn't believe in vaccines. And if you're that person, well, you know, God help you. But the bacteria that causes tetanus is not only in rusty nails or metals, it's in the spores that are found in soil, dust, and even manure. So if you like to garden or you like to be in nature, it's an imperative defense and it's effective for 10 years. So it's a good one. Um, Fertilize your entire garden this month. That includes lawns if you haven't already done so. The wild mustard is blooming now and harvest it. Use it in soups and salads. You'll get a tangy, nutritious meal. Keep picking up those fallen camellia blossoms because they're still in full bloom. Camellias are one of these plants that bloom for 3 or 4 months, but the flowers, when they fall on the ground, they cause a fungal disease known as camellia flower blight, which turns the petals brown and they fall off. So, pick them up. And then, as I said earlier, it's great to mix flowers with edibles to attract pollinators to your spring garden. And make sure to plant in groups because that will entice the birds, the bees, the butterflies to savor the dinner you are serving. So I hope that you enjoy this beautiful month of April, the fruits of your labor. I wish you happy gardening, happy growing, and may the Easter Bunny hop to your garden. It is Easter this week, so happy, happy Easter to all of you. Well, that is my show for today. And as always, I thank you for staying tuned to Star Style Be the Star You Are with me, your host and producer, Cynthia Brian. I'd like to help you in your personal growth, success for all, and hopefully give you some tips that can help you travel, live well, and just have a great lifestyle. For more information about Star Style Productions or to purchase any of my books, please visit cynthiabrian.com. If you're interested in getting involved in the charity, go to bethestarur.org. To make a donation, you can do it also by credit card and PayPal there if you're interested. And my aim is always to encourage, inspire, inform, amuse, and motivate. See beyond your physical being. Know you already are the star you dreamed of becoming. Cherish the past, dream of the future, but let's remember that love always wins, kindness prevails, and smiles will keep us happy. My name is Cynthia Brian for Star Style. I thank you and encourage you. Be your unapologetically authentic self. Go out into the world and be the star you are. And once again, have a very joyous, happy Easter.